it's hard. You can't be a change agent in the community unless you can be a change agent in your household.
Right.
And the only way for you to be a change agent in your household is you got to be able to take control of the kitchen table matters. And that's kind of where I got out some of that from, right? She said that to me.
Right.
And at that time, I was really just beginning to reevaluate my relationship with money. So often when people think about money, they think about wealth. There's this like negative connotation associated with it. People have this belief that if you're wealthy, if you're successful, that somehow you have to obstruct other people's come up. You have.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, where connections matter. I am Charles, your host, and welcome to episode number 72. Each week we bring you interviews of Detroit difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. So I want to thank those who are joining us this Monday evening for episode 72. So we have an exciting guest and topic for tonight. We're going to be talking about the entrepreneur mindset, For those of you who are maybe you're 9-to-5 entrepreneurs and you have a side hustle or a dream or something that you are working on, or maybe a hobby, but you want to expand it to a business. So we're going to talk about those steps and now to have an entrepreneur mindset. So we're excited about that. Before we get into our guests, I just want to thank those who are joining us live. Appreciate that. Those who are joining us live on LinkedIn, on our Detroit Metro Plug podcast page, and also on our Facebook page, on Detroit Metro Plug podcast Facebook page, and those who will be watching the replay on YouTube. We definitely thank you for your support and watching our shows each week, bringing you different difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. Do me a favor. If you find value in what we're doing, please like and share with friends, family, associates, especially those who who desire to grow in their business and have that right entrepreneurial mindset. But before we go into our guest for this evening, just want to share briefly. I got to ask you a question. Have you ever had a desire to make an impact? Maybe you wanted to be a local hero in supporting a great cause. If you answer yes to both of those questions, or either one of those questions, I want to invite you to join me and be a member of Black Leaders Detroit. This is an organization that's having a major impact with Black businesses in the Metro Detroit area. They've given over $1 million in resources within the last year, helping to support Black businesses, Black ran nonprofits. So if you're looking to be a hero, all it takes is $1 a week, and you can make a great impact. Let me share this quick video to share more about how you can support Black Leaders Detroit.
Black Leaders Detroit, they knew that during the pandemic, that Black businesses were going to be left out of any type of funding that the government gave, and they wanted to make sure that they were able to figure out how they could step up and help, because again, this is their community, and they want to make sure that their community is still here when this pandemic is over with. And the only way you can do that is by offering support to your community, and so they stepped up and they did that.
I've been telling everyone I know about Black Leaders Detroit. The things that they're doing is simply amazing. And they're taking care of business for the Black business owners.
It's $1 a week donation to keep this great thing moving. $1 a week keeps it popping. Black Leaders Detroit.
All right, so Black Leaders Detroit, just $1 a week to keep it moving, $1 a week to keep it popping. So I will invite you to join me and become a member of Black Leaders Detroit, and you too can be a face of a hero. You can find out more information by going to blackleadersdetroit.org. Blackleadersdetroit.org. Only $1 a week or $52 a year. Also, they're having their ride for equity. I'll be doing a special interview from the leaders of Black Leader Detroit later in this month. So I'll share more details about that. All right. So let's go into introducing our guests for this evening. So tonight's topic is the entrepreneur mindset. We are blessed to have Mr. JuJuan Buford. He is a managing partner of JSB Business Solution Group, co-founder, serial entrepreneur, writer, and public speaker. He started his career in banking and investment. He transitioned into business ownership and is enjoying entrepreneurial success in sales, business development, technical assistance, and real estate investment industries. He is a fervent advocate of entrepreneurship and believes that an entrepreneurial mindset is the most effective way to help families take control of what happens in their at their kitchen tables and to become curators, change agents, and providers of opportunities in their communities. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome to episode 73, JuJuan Buford. All right, so thank you for being a part of episode 73. I appreciate your time. So, do you mind sharing with our audience just a little bit of background? Where you from, what school you went to, if you're originally from Detroit, whatever you feel comfortable sharing about yourself.
Fantastic. Yes, certainly. And thank you, Charles, for the invitation. Really glad to be here with you. I had an opportunity to, take inventory of some of your content. I see the work you're doing in the community. I love to be here with a fellow grow giver who's making an invaluable contribution to people's lives, particularly in the space of entrepreneurship. So, thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here with you. And, my upbringing is, I'm a Detroiter. Been pretty much born and raised here in the Detroit metropolitan area, in Detroit proper in particular. Grew up my formative years as a child in Highland Park. Was raised by my grandparents early on, and since then have lived in Detroit almost all my adult life, really, with the exception of the time where I attended University of Michigan. So I was out in Ann Arbor for about five and a half, 6 years, and yeah, man, attended Cass Tech.
Okay.
Got my roots there as a technician. And shortly thereafter, attended like I said, for the University of Michigan, and had a wonderful time there at U of M. In many respects, it was probably bittersweet, but at the end of the day, it was more sweet than bitter. And in terms of my professional background, I actually got my start in the financial services industry.
Okay.
My eldest daughter was born my junior year in college. And, the ideal of becoming a teacher stopped being feasible at that point.
Okay.
I looked at salaries. I looked at what was going on in the education school system. And, I wanted to be a activist. I wanted to be a change agent in that role. But I said to myself, I got to find a different way. So a lot of what I did following matriculating the university system, was very much motivated by that. But it was also motivated by a couple things that transpired while I was on campus. During the time where we were there at U of M, it wasn't necessarily the liberal environment that is purported to be. Let's put it that way, right?
Okay.
And I spent quite a bit of time within activist circles working to make the University of Michigan environment more hospitable to students of color in general, but particularly within the African American community, right, to make sure there was more opportunities, whether it be of the faculty, staff, and students to have a more favorable experience and more favorable outcomes. And one of the most important lessons I learned while I was there is that beggars can't be choosers. I participated in a sit-in that lasted well in excess of a month. There was another sit-in that was transpiring that was happening simultaneously. One sit-in that I was participating in, it was the rainbow, if you will, right? You had Latinos, Asian Americans, African Americans, Native Americans, all working together to demand equity and better treatment. There was another movement taking place, and I don't belittle it. I mean, it's just as important. It was an organization that was advocating for workers' rights. And what I noticed was that the complexion was totally different. So I paid very close attention to how they were being treated in the media. I also paid very close attention to the extent to which the community kind of advocated for them. Um, and it became very obvious to me that money also played a role in it, right? Finances. And the lesson I learned from that, once again, is that beggars can't be choosers, right? You have to be able to afford the change that you want in your community. You have to be able, you can't come out with a handout and expect those individuals who, quite frankly, it's not that they necessarily are looking to actively or constantly oppress, but they just don't care. They're indifferent, right?
Right.
And the only way oftentimes to get individuals to move and act in a certain type of way is to provide some type of financial incentive or disincentive, right, to get the results that you're looking for. And so that informed a great deal of my career early on. Started out in the banking industry and lasted a couple months there. They put me at the poorest branch in the city at the time in Detroit, off of Woodward and West Grand Boulevard. And if you remember what that neighborhood looked like over 20 years ago, there was no education center. You know, there was basically little old ladies walking into the bank, you know, taking out their security checks and leaving $1 in the account, right?
Right.
And I, in that environment, I raised over $1 million in new revenues for the bank that I was at. It was Standard Federal Bank, now after multiple buyouts, Bank of America.
Okay.
And they rewarded me with a $50 Marshall Fields gift card.
Wow.
So yeah, so I did
I just
something
want to
I
make
would
sure I
not
heard you
encourage.
right. You helped to get you helped to
$1 million
deposit for the
in new
revenue of $1
revenues.
million, and they rewarded you with a $50 Macy or Marshall Fields gift card.
Yep. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. The error judgment they had made is I went through a licensing process to get that job. So back then we were called LBs, licensed bank employees, right? So
Okay.
I was exposed to the insurance industry. I was exposed to the investment advising industry. I was able to
Okay.
do some math, right?
Right.
And I knew that outside of that environment, I would have been compensated well in excess of what a lot of individuals earn full time working, you know, 40, 50, 60 hours a week just for that one transaction. And
Right.
you know, I did what I would not encourage anyone to do. I was a single parent, no savings, right? Still didn't know my left hand from my right. But what I did know is I had a strong work ethic. I had a real
Right.
desire to serve and help people.
Okay.
I was an avid learner. That was something that was instilled in me by my grandparents.
Right.
And I had a real burning desire to go out and be of service. And I wanted to be in an environment where I felt like I could really scale my talent and intellect. So I immediately transitioned out of that banking environment into the financial services industry, acquired additional licensing until I could be recognized as what they refer to as an investment advisor.
Okay.
And the first couple of years were terrible, right?
Now, when
Had to
you
stay.
said you said you transitioned to financial services from banking, did you work with
Mhm.
a brokerage company or what was that?
Yep. Yep. So the
Okay.
company back then was known as John Hancock. I believe today
Oh yeah.
they
I
go
think
by
they
Signature.
got taken down by the crash, the stock market crash, right? Or was
Well,
that?
what they ended up doing was merging with Manulife.
Oh, okay. They
So,
merged. Okay.
no, so they weren't a casualty of what transpired in that
Okay.
respect.
Okay.
They decided to switch from a different type of system, from an agency system to a brokerage system.
Okay.
And I'm sure that, you know, what happened in 2008 helped to expedite, right, that process. But no, they
Right.
weren't a casualty in much the same way that AIG was or some of the other
Right.
companies.
Okay. All right.
So the broker dealer was Signature Financial. I ended up being an investment advisor with
So you
that
had to get
broker
a
dealer.
Series 6,
Yep,
Series 7's license? Okay. All right.
yep. Didn't get
Mhm.
the 7,
Okay.
acquired 6, 6.3.
Okay.
Was working towards the 7,
Right.
and 2008 transpired.
Right.
And at that time, you know, when you first start out as an entrepreneur, in the beginning, you do a lot of work that you don't get paid for,
Right. Right.
right?
Hmm.
So later on, you can be compensated for work you don't have to do. So right when my money started to catch up with my experience,
Right.
I'm looking up, and I literally watched almost a decade of blood, sweat, and tears literally disappear, right,
Wow.
in 2008. So my income gets cut in half, and I think you understand, like most people, that because your income gets cut in half, that doesn't mean your responsibilities get cut in half.
Right. Right.
And then at the same time, I'm also going through a nasty custody battle over my daughter. It was tough. It was
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
Working, 70 plus hours a week, basically going to work in the dark, coming home in the dark, watching my daughter go to sleep on the couch, in the office, just trying to figure out how I was going to make ends meet, if you will. But of course, they're bookends; they don't ever meet.
Right.
So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And so what ended up transpiring is I had less and less clients coming into the office to invest their monies, but more coming into the office to ask questions about how should they structure their businesses,
Okay.
asking questions about bankruptcy, asking questions about how to manage their assets in a divorce, asking questions about how to matriculate through IRS audits and how to restructure businesses and sell assets and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Okay.
And as an investment advisor, that's not necessarily my forte, right? I understand tax and accounting, but that's not really my specialization. I understand my way around legal documents and forms and how to make smart decisions in terms of structuring, but that's not really necessarily what an investment advisor does, right? But after over 10 years of walking in and out of business owners' lives, probably averaging about 10 to 15 business owners a week, let's just say when you manage people's finances, you learn a lot about them,
Okay.
right? You learn a lot about how to manage assets, but also how to manage behavior, and you learn about how businesses are actually operated on a really high level when you get close to people like that. And so, as a result, I was able to make what for me felt like a natural transition into more of a B2B consulting role, right?
Okay.
And providing a lot of the technical assistance that's required for business owners to level up and grow. I ended up partnering with other individuals who had skill sets and knowledge stacks that I didn't have to provide services. I also ended up partnering with a couple companies to provide services as well to the business owners that it wasn't necessarily my expertise or just wasn't intelligent to be involved in, right? I didn't want to do anything that would cause operational lag, right? So I wanted to kind of stay in my lane, so to speak. And after all those years, sales and sales management was really my specialization, was my lane, right?
Okay.
And then you add on leadership development and being able to help people once again strategically align their core values and core focus with the direction they want to take their business. That's where I kind of carved out a niche for myself.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Wow. So you basically broke down your whole journey. You of course you shout out to the Cass Tech High School for giving that educational foundation.
Hmm.
And so when you were at U of M, were you a business major? What was your focus?
No,
Oh
no,
wow.
I really wanted to. Man, I wanted to be a community activist.
Oh, so that's
I
why you
want
were doing
I
community activist
I
work as a
wanted to
student.
be a teacher, man. What was
Oh, okay.
instilled in me early
Okay.
on was, especially for my grandmother in particular.
Hmm.
She told me that she wanted me to find a way to help the community,
Okay. Okay.
and I heard that repeatedly from her. You
Right.
know,
All right.
and so that was kind of ingrained psychologically in me to find a way to be of value to the community,
Okay.
right? And I didn't understand exactly what that would look like. I didn't understand. I had a weird relationship with money, like a lot of people.
Right. Right.
But between um, that being drilled into me, between the books that I read,
Right. Right.
before the Mayflower,
Right.
um, Malcolm X's biography, I think by
Right. Right.
sixth
Right.
grade, I probably read that book 2 or 3 different times.
Right.
Um, so just the reading and being in a kind of environment that inculcated um, excellence in terms of learning and
Right.
wanted to make an impact. That's what I wanted to do. I remember
Okay.
like it was yesterday, right? So I complete my requirements at U of M. I interviewed with a couple. nonprofit organizations, a couple political organizations in the city of Detroit, and
Wow, wow,
both of them told me that I was overqualified, even though I was willing to take minimum wage to do the work.
wow.
A couple of them told me I did not have the right connections.
Mm.
And back then I was rocking cornrows.
Oh, you had
So
cornrows? Okay.
I had the cornrows, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All
So
right.
I
I
didn't
got you.
quite quote unquote fit the part. So, I'm listening to them and I'm like, okay, I'm an
What did they expect
NAACP.
for an activist to look like? To look like Al Sharpton or Jesse
You
Jackson?
know,
What was they?
I don't know what they expected. All my life I've never really quote unquote met expectations. I've always been a little bit different,
Right,
you
right,
know. So for me, all I was thinking was, okay, I'm an NAACP Student Leader of the Year.
right.
Um, I've helped to irreparably and in a good way change an environment at one of the wealthiest institutions in the world.
Right, right,
What came out of that sit-in and our activist endeavors. Um, University of Michigan went from having a Center of African American Studies to eventually Department of African American Studies. We helped to reestablish a graduation ceremony that ended up becoming one of the largest African American graduation ceremonies of its kind, whether it
okay,
be at a traditional university or even at HBCU.
right,
We really made history in that environment, and I can't
okay,
take credit for it. I was surrounded by some really dynamic,
right,
incredible
right,
leadership in their own right. But for me, I just saw the continuation of the same. That's what I
right,
wanted to
right,
do.
okay, okay,
And, like I said before, I didn't come from the right zip code, didn't have the right connections.
right,
Sometimes what they say is true. It's not what you know, but who you know.
right, right,
But you can also take that too far,
right.
right? And so you
Wow.
couple that rejection along with the fact that while I was at the University of Michigan, I actually came underneath the tutelage of an investment advisor to earn extra income on the side. And so I had this skill stack, I had this knowledge stack about investment planning, understanding finances.
Right,
Um,
right.
so when I graduated, if you will, um, what ended up happening is schools, organizations didn't come calling, the banking industry came calling.
Wow,
They
that's
looked,
interesting. Wow.
yeah, it
So
is.
I
They
want to, I
looked,
want to, I want to make sure, because you said something interesting in your journey. So while you were doing student activism, to organizing the sit-ins, you were working
Mhm.
with, you was a student involved with the NAACP chapter at U of M. How did you connect with someone to learn about investment advising on the side? Was that just kind of you
Well,
just ran
I
into
had to
that?
work, man. I had
Oh,
to
okay.
work
You
to put
trying to get?
myself through school.
Oh, okay. To
Yeah.
pay through school,
So
student. Okay. Okay.
anytime I could find an opportunity to work a job that,
But of all the jobs, how was that? I mean, you found you got into investments as a
you know
side
what,
hustle.
I can't even recall who introduced me to the individual.
Oh, okay, okay,
I can't even recall who introduced me. Actually, yes, I do.
all right,
There was a teacher that I was dating.
okay,
She introduced me to him because she knew I needed to earn some additional income.
okay, okay,
And she saw my intellect, she saw my drive, and she said something that I'll never forget. She said, "Juan, it's hard. You can't be a change agent in the community unless you can be a change agent in your household.
right,
And the only way for you to be a change agent in your household is you got to be able to take control of kitchen table matters." And that's kind of where I got some of that from, right? She
right,
said that to me.
right, right,
And at that time, I was really just beginning to reevaluate my relationship with money. So often when people think about money and they think about wealth, there's this like negative connotation associated with it. People have this belief that if you're wealthy, if you're successful, that sometimes somehow you had to obstruct other people's come up, you had to exploit, you had to take advantage of people. And that is a mindset that really afflicts and causes problems within the African American community in particular
right.
when we talk about business development and growth.
Hmm.
And she saw that I was beginning to really evaluate what that meant, right? The ideal of putting yourself in a situation where if you're financially independent, you really can operate and speak and move the way you want to move, and then in turn also provide opportunities for others. So those seminal thoughts were coming into mind. I read a book by Manny Marable that kind of impacted my thinking. I started getting exposed to other authors early on. I remember in my journey reading a book by Claude Anderson, Powernomics, right? So along my journey in terms of building skill stacks and knowledge and trying to figure out, okay, how do I position myself in the world to really be a change agent in the community and help and empower people, she started planting those seeds and she introduced me to the investment advisor.
Okay. Wow. Wow. So that's a very, very interesting story. Your roots are and your motivation was community activism, and then you kind of fell into this investment advising. And so
Yeah.
when you graduated, and you said you went out to reach out to these organizations, like I don't know if it was NAACP, the Urban League.
That was one of them.
Oh, okay. And they say you were overqualified or you didn't have the right connections, and
Mhm.
and so when you said that the banking industry was calling, what was going on in the time of when
They didn't care about the cornrows, man.
they didn't care about you were still rocking the
They
cornrows?
didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, still rocking the cornrows. They didn't care.
Okay. Okay.
They
Wow.
didn't care
That's
about
strange
the zip
because you
code.
would think the political activism would be okay with that, and the corporate would be against, wearing your
I
hair.
don't know if they were for it, but they didn't care enough for it to
Oh,
be a
okay.
contributing factor, right?
Okay. All right.
They didn't care about my zip code.
Okay.
They didn't care about my family connections.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they didn't care about the what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't care about the veneer.
All right.
What they saw was a hardworking person who was intelligent, articulate,
Right.
looking for ambitious, looking for a way to establish myself, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The fact that I could have a conversation about, I guess I would say, more complex topics and deal with subject matter. The fact that I could synthesize information very quickly, right? The fact that I could communicate concepts in a they would be considered complex in a very simplistic way. But once again, the work ethic, they saw the drive, right?
Right.
You're not going to be a community activist, matriculate through a university, work 2 and 3 jobs, and take on the responsibility of being a father unless you got an incredible work ethic,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And I
Right.
remember when I was interviewing with the HR person, that's what kind of blew them away. As a
Right.
matter of fact, I think a lot of the stereotypes that you would associate
Mm-hmm.
with individuals who kind of had my upbringing, grew up in the zip codes I grew up in, rocking the cornrows. I think the fact that I posed such a huge dichotomy, it was shocking. It was surprising,
Right.
right? Because they were expecting me to be lazy. They probably, I shouldn't, well, no, I could see the look on their faces. They were expecting me to be one thing.
Right.
And when they realized I had something else altogether, they didn't waste any time.
Okay. Okay.
And, I tell people all the time, winners are winners. You
Mm-hmm.
know, oftentimes individuals will make a decision to join something based on compensation and other things, but typically you drop a winner in any type of environment, they're going to find a way to excel, right?
Right.
And so, for me, just being dropped in that environment, I was going to excel because that's the only thing I knew how to do.
Okay.
So, that's what I did, man. Within the first 3 months, I learned their systems faster than people have been there 20 and 30 years.
Okay.
I was able to negotiate with the branch manager at the time that, look, your job and my job was on the line. We needed to get this done. Um, I believed in many of the services and products. And in terms, as far as I was concerned, my mission of helping people become more financially solvent and more literate. And so that's what kind of drove me to have success in that environment. And,
Wow.
it's interesting that they didn't listen to you. You kind of draw the dichotomy between the investment advising industry. I mean, for me, I saw being in that industry as an extension of my activism,
Okay. Okay.
right? Even though I was working oftentimes with individuals who live north of 12 Mile, I very regularly put on workshops in Detroit Public Library.
Okay.
I very regularly ran nonprofit appointments, as I would call it, right? Just sitting down with individuals who I knew really couldn't afford the services or to pay the costs typically associated with the information I would dispense, but I would do it anyway,
Right.
right? For me, I worked with individuals who were in wealthier tax brackets, so
Right.
I could afford to work with individuals who were not in that space and not have to exact an expense from them, right? And so for me, I always just saw it as an extension of more of the same. I wanted to see more people who grew up in the environments that I grew up in, who come from the same cultural and ethnic roots that I came from. I wanted to see them level up, you know. Everything I'd read, you know, getting acquainted with Vincent Harding, There's a River, getting acquainted with so many of these authors and books and learning about the activism that preceded me. Those activists whose shoulders we stand on. For me, it was always, how do we move the ball forward? How do we continue to level up? And for me, it was just, you couldn't dissect or separate the monetary well-being of our community from freedom and independence here in the United States of America. You know, I remind people all the time, you know, folks, some people in our community will make fun of Sammy Davis Jr., right? Because his proclivities and the people that he hung around with. I remind people, no Sammy Davis Jr., Martin Luther King doesn't get bailed out of jail.
Right. Absolutely.
So, you know, for me, it was always just trying to find my way in that space.
Okay.
And when I look at business development and growth and the work I'm involved in today, once again, it's more of an extension of it. You know, I think I did a post recently where I talked about the ideal that, and Claude Anderson talked about this in Powernomics, right? And unfortunately, what he said is very true. That, you know, in a handful of years, you know, unfortunately, we'll probably see in our lifetimes, our total net worth will be zero in this country. On top of that, you take into account the fact that we'll no longer be the quote unquote largest minority in the United States of America. We'll probably be the third or fourth in our lifetime. And, you know, what does that mean? Well, that basically means if you don't have any ownership, you don't have any equity in the environments you operate in, you get dictated to.
Exactly.
You don't get to choose. You get what's left over. And really, when you look at what's been going on over the last 2 decades, the only reason why the African American community has really been able to hang on is because of our political presence. You know, what we're able to achieve at the ballot box. But that's evaporating. And so, you know, when I think about business development and growth and the nature of work I'm doing in the community now, what I want to do is help stem that tide. Right. I want to see more people choosing entrepreneurship. I love what you said in the beginning, right? Because people have this misnomer that somehow you have to be full-time in entrepreneurship to make a difference. And that's not the case. We can all benefit from just a more entrepreneurial mindset, right? And you have to in today's world. I mean, going out, this ain't your granddaddy's economy. You're not going to be working somewhere 20 and 30 years and then have a pension or a parachute waiting for you, right? You have to be entrepreneurial in your thinking in terms of sizing up what it is you need to do to improve your skill set, your knowledge stack, how to network properly, all things that are required to be successful as an entrepreneur, even within the traditional W-2 workspace, right? And you can build a considerable amount of wealth just part-time, spare time. I tell people all the time, if there's $1.50 on the table, and you can choose what you're going to pick up. Some people say, well, I'll pick up $1, right? I tell people, pick up both. Work the job, build the business on the side. And if you are fortunate enough to develop the skills, the talent, the wisdom, the experience, you have the right people around you, and you're able to turn that into a full-time enterprise, then you know, applaud you all along the way.
That's a good segue. I appreciate your story and your journey. Just how you know, you have a background with a mission in terms of being an activist, serving in the community as a student, and still carrying that activism spirit in the world of financing, financial literacy, and business entrepreneurship. And so I want to segue in because you started to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial mindset. And I want you to go into what you do with how did JSB Business Solution Groups, how did that get started? And how would you define the entrepreneurial mindset?
So in the seminal stages, when I started the company, you know, it really got its start even before it existed on paper, right? like I said before, when I was looking at what transpired in 2008, once again, I needed to pivot like everyone else, right? I was losing my shirt like everyone else.
Okay.
And once again, I'm always asking myself, how can I position myself to have a greater impact? But I stopped asking myself simply, how can I position myself to have a greater impact? I said, I need to be able to level up as well, right? Oftentimes, with activists in particular, with that mindset, we spend so much time helping others, we neglect ourselves,
Okay.
right? And, you know, when I think about my evolution over the years, you know, everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to be top dog, if you will, or top G, whatever you want to call it, right?
Right.
But I believe exampleship is more valuable than leadership, right? If I can demonstrate in the way I move and in my accomplishments and achievements, if I can demonstrate, if I can show receipts, that's more powerful than anything I could say, right? And so I started thinking critically about that. Like, how do I put myself in position to actually build businesses, right? How can I partner with a franchise and have a successful franchise experience? How can I begin to show receipts, success stories, right? How can I go from helping people become the employer to becoming the employer myself, right? And it was that thinking that led me to establish JSB Business Solutions Group, right? And so initially, the thinking was I'm going to help people start up businesses.
Right.
And that was fun for a little while, right?
Mhm.
Helping people understand how to set up a, you know, whether it be DBA, LLC, S Corp, or C Corp, and making sure people were recommended to the right professionals to help them navigate those waters. Helping people understand how to communicate a value prop, how to identify what their core values and core focus are, because that's important.
Right.
A lot of times people choose entrepreneurship and they think money's going to fall from the sky like manna. No, it's not.
No.
And it is hard to invest your energies in a compromise. So, now I'm just a firm believer, and this can go too far too, right? Because if you're passionate about 8-track tapes, you can have a hard time being successful, right?
Right.
It ain't always about following your passion, but you do want to move in such a way and build a business that is consistent with your values, consistent with your principles, consistent with your core focus, who you want to serve, how you want to serve, right? And so I kind of began my journey there, right?
Okay. Right.
And once again, having that sales background, it didn't take me long to move from just sales to sales leadership and management. In other words, teaching other people how to communicate a value prop, helping other people understand how to bring people to a point of decision, helping people understand client services, branding, marketing, and everything that entails, right?
Right.
And so that's what I spent my first handful of years doing. One of the companies that really helped me along that way was PPLSI. Most people know the product is Legal Shield, right?
Right. Right. Okay.
And, you know, the bottom line is most small business owners don't fail, in my humble opinion, my experience has been, they don't fail for a lack of intellect, hard work, or talent, right? They fail because they don't have access to certain resources. They don't have access to technical expertise. They don't have $2,000 to $400 an hour and $2,000 and $3,000 retainers to pay for the services of an accountant, attorney, HR person, marketing, branding specialist, IT, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, that company kind of fit hand in glove. It allowed me to give people an affordable way to access these resources so they're able to make smart decisions and put systems in place to scale their business, right?
Right.
So as a result of partnering with that company, I was able to build both a passive and residual income, which is important because what that meant was that I wasn't taking every dime that I earned and spending it to keep myself alive, to keep food on the table, right?
Right. Right.
That business allowed me to create a situation where I was able to siphon income away to investing in myself, right? Reading the books I need to learn, getting the environments I need to get in, taking the classes I need to take, doing things I need to do to become more effective and more valuable, right?
Right.
But at a certain point, when I take inventory of Detroit in particular, and I'm trying to figure out how deep of a dive to go because I'm looking at the clock. But this is what I would say.
Okay.
Right now, if you look at the environment, for the most part, Detroit, particularly in the African American community, there is a plethora of resources if you want to learn how to start up a business, right?
Right.
And I have some strategic advantages over people in that space, right? Because I actually have the real world experience, having helped people start up businesses and doing it myself, as well as the experience, right? So the new
Right.
broom may sweep better, but the old broom knows the corners.
Right.
right? And just being able to anticipate and understand things. But there's a plethora of resources to help people start up businesses. I had a business owner that I spoke with a couple years ago. He told me, JuJuan, there's plenty of money to start up businesses. There's plenty of resources to start up businesses. That's all available. He says, my challenge is I need to scale.
Right.
Right? How do I go from a team of me to a team of we?
Right.
Right? How do I put operating systems in place? How do I find talent, onboard talent properly, put people in the right positions, in the right seats, put systems in place where I can clearly communicate my expectations, make sure there's an environment where people are acquiring the skills and knowledge they need to succeed, and learn how to inspire and move people. And
Right.
so, especially during the pandemic, I really began to develop those skills and those knowledge and skill and stacks in terms of how I could interact with individuals. And while we know 40% of business owners went out of business, I think those numbers are much higher in Detroit.
Right.
I was fortunate that because of this journey I was on, I was able to help plenty of business owners actually thrive during the pandemic and help several business owners actually successfully start up businesses, right? And so that's how really JSB Business Solutions Group came to play. It was assessing the environment and
Okay.
figuring out where can I be of greatest benefit, right?
Okay.
For me now, I'm in the middle of a transition again, right? So
Okay.
just like the market evolves,
Mhm.
as an entrepreneur, you have to evolve, right? So I've been able to help these business owners not only start, but also begin the process of putting systems in place and growing.
Okay.
And I talk about entrepreneurship in stages, right?
Right.
In the beginning, there's execution. So core focus, core values, who I want to serve, what my product and service is going to be, how do I communicate it, how do I help people, how do I engage people from the time I make eye contact with them to the time whether they decide or not to patronize me. What are the processes I have in place to create engagement, create 1,000 to 3,000 people in an environment that love, know, respect what it is I do, and if they don't patronize, or at least want to refer people to me who will, right? That's the first stage. So you're beta testing, really. You're
Yes.
failing real fast, right? When you mature past that phase, because of your success, because there's only so much time in a day, you have to start bringing on talent around you, right?
Exactly.
Which means you go from execution to leadership, right? Once again, how do you communicate expectations? How do you provide an environment where you actually duplicate yourself, right? You create systems where people can fall in and begin to take some of that load off you so you can concentrate on being a CEO as opposed to a COO, right? And that's a huge piece of the puzzle, right? Leadership and exampleship in particular, because when you're starting out as a business owner, oftentimes you don't have the carrot that corporate America has, right? People have to actually want to work. They have to respect you because they see you up close and personal. They have to want to be there. They have to buy in to what it is that you're doing, right? Because they're not going to come in early and leave late unless they really believe in the vision and what you're trying to accomplish, and they have to believe that there's a future for them there, right? So that becomes a very important piece of the leadership equation. But then once you've matured from that state of your business, then you move into a situation where now you have to put in systems to amplify the talents around you.
Okay.
Right? Where you start becoming competitive, you start grabbing market share, you start scaling in such a way where you're generating more revenues than you need, which then allows you to invest even further in your products, your service, your customer service, your engagement, et cetera, right?
Okay.
And then there's another stage that really has my attention, is really the direction I'm going. Once you get there, now you can start making capital investments.
Right.
Right? Now you can start adding verticals to your business. You can start moving into different marketplaces. You can start investing not only capital in real estate and not only capital in the stock market or in different currencies, but you can actually start investing in other businesses.
Okay.
And for me, that's the thing that's really exciting right now. I read a report not too long ago. There's 11 million businesses right now nationwide that are getting ready to literally go out of business.
Wow.
The baby boomers started these businesses, and they are retiring out of the market. and only 30% of businesses actually get passed on to the next generation. And I would argue it's even worse within Detroit proper, right? And it's not that these businesses aren't valuable. It's not that these businesses don't have products and services that meet the needs of individuals. It's not that these business owners don't bring a world of wisdom and service and create community. It's just they're aging out.
Right.
And if we don't buy those businesses, other people will. And if we don't buy those businesses, all the wealth, branding, marketing, that network, which is your net worth, will disappear with those businesses. Those are the things that I'm thinking about more critically. Number one, how can I position myself, be an example, and be successful in that environment, and then turn around and teach what I know, right? Because I experienced it and I've done it. And so when I think about what I've been doing, what I am doing, and what I'm taking aim at over the next 5 years, that gives hopefully a decent synopsis of it all.
Yeah. Just going back, you're sharing just how the evolution of your business. So, does this start JSB Business Solutions Group? Did that start pre-pandemic or during the pandemic or something else?
Right in the middle of it.
Oh, right in the middle of the pandemic. All right, and it sounds like you are helping entrepreneurs at the beginning stage. How to properly file for LLC or what business entity they should be in, whether it was S corp.
But more importantly is this, right? Because oftentimes when you come across new business owners,
right,
at least this is what I've been my experience with them. They'll set up the LLC, get their EIN, open up the checking savings account. They'll start investing sometimes in products and services. But when you lean in and say, have you gotten your first client yet?
Right.
Or have you acquired enough clients and are your services and products moving on a consistent basis? Right? That's where the deficit comes into play. Right? I tell people all the time, you don't have a business unless you have clients. Right? And so the area where I tend to excel is not only helping them get their businesses structured, but I'll give you a case in point. There was a lady that I was working with a couple years ago who wanted to start the cannabis business. Inspirational story. She was motivated by her mother that she was taking care of. And her mother was suffering from all these different ailments. And we all know people like this, right? Where the extent of their living situation is the couch, the chair, the television. Right? Her mother reached a point physically where she was suffering from a number of different ailments where it was uncomfortable for her to lay in her bed. It was uncomfortable for her to leave the residence. So literally her life existed between the walls of a living room and sitting in front of a television set. Pretty depressing circumstances, right? And one day she acquired some edibles. She left the edibles on the table in air by mistake. She wakes up, sees them gone. She isn't quite sure because people are coming in and out of the house period. She's not sure what happened, but she noticed her mother actually had gotten up for the first time and actually went to the bathroom and took a bath without help. She's like, wow. And it took a while. She struggled, but very little help. She's able to do it. So the light comes on. She acquires some edibles again, and she puts them in front of her mother. And her mother, over the course of time, consuming these edibles over months, started moving around the apartment. Started wanting to do things other than sit inside the apartment. She actually would sit outside sometimes, right? She would walk. One day, the lady came home, panicked because her mother wasn't in the apartment. She goes running around outside, finds her mother literally walking around the apartment.
Wow.
Something that hadn't happened in years,
Right.
And then the coup de grace was her mother asked her to take her to the grocery store. She was afraid because, her mother hadn't walked around and done anything like that in a long time. And, her mother would get to the grocery store, starts conversing with people, talking to people, chatting with people, all these different things. They have a good experience at the grocery store. Literally totally different person, right? So she wants to start a cannabis business. And she's trying to do what everyone else is doing, right? She's trying to get the accoutrements and get a front store. And, she's trying to market the way everyone markets the brochures and flyers and, her story was, I want to start a cannabis business because the economy and what happened politically and what happened in terms of the criminal system, I want to use this business to employ people who were damaged by it, and it's part of the culture and something I've always done. And I told her, I said, that's not really the winning story for you. I said, once I learned about a month, I said, you're sitting on the winning story for you. So let me ask you a question. When your mother's lifestyle started to change, did her other friends notice? She says, yeah. And I said, did her friends start inquiring with you what the hell's going on? She says, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, did they start inquiring about these edibles with you as well? She says, yeah. I said, that's your business. Your target market is not these young folks running around here. Your target market is not these 30 and 40. Your target market is these 60 and 70, 80-year-olds who are looking for relief that doesn't involve medicating themselves in a traditional sense, using pharmaceuticals, right? That's your target market. Your story is not the story that most people would articulate in terms of the culture and et cetera. That's important.
Right.
But this is your real story. The fact that you were able to help your mother recover, help her friends recover. And then here's the thing about elderly people. They don't necessarily want to go and jump in a car and go to a dispensary. Number one, in the older generation of women, they still have a sense of honor, integrity. They care about appearances, right? They don't want to show up at a dispensary. So what are they doing? They're sending their nephew. Right. They're sending the grandchild, right? Because they don't want to do that. That's what's typically happening, right? So the idea of them showing up at a lounge too isn't very practical either. Right. That's what your business is, making these edibles accessible to people in that population who aren't going to get into a car, who may not have a courier to go acquire what they want. That's really your business, right? Making cannabis products accessible and sharing it and helping people acquire in a way that fits their kind of cultural upbringings and their sense of self, right? And the moment I brought that to her attention, in terms of how to position herself in the marketplace, it really makes sense based on her business took off like hotcakes, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, her love for her mother and elderly people in general, she's actually a social worker, really where her core values were at, right? Her core focus, which a lot of business owners don't even know who their target market and their core focus is. Her core focus was really people like her mother.
Right, exactly.
Right?
That's a good
case. And then
case.
how you serve is how you deliver what they need in a way that is accessible and comfortable for them. And ever since then, how she markets has changed, where she markets, how she moves, who she talks to, how she communicates what it is she does, right? That's kind of the area where when a business owner is starting out, that's what I help them identify.
Okay.
And hopefully that makes sense.
It also sounds, that's a great case study. It also sounds like your business has evolved with not just helping new entrepreneurs, but also mature businesses to scale and go from me to we, and then start doing capital investments. Is that fair to say that's what you're in as well? Okay. Okay. So what would you say is the, as we wrap things up, who is the best customer or best person that your business would serve? JSB Business Solutions Group. Who is your ideal customer?
So the clients that I tend to have the most success with, and quite frankly that I enjoy working with more frequently, it's not to say I don't enjoy working with startups, right? But the business owners I tend to really derive a lot of edification from working with are usually business owners that have been in business for about, I want to say, between 2 and 5 years. Okay. At that point, they've gotten past the beta stage, right? They're generating revenues, they're taking on clients on a regular basis. They are beginning to bump their heads, right? There's only 24 hours in a day, and they're trying to be the CEO, CFO, COO. They're trying to be the phone call, text message person. They're trying to be the HR, marketing, tax accounting person. They're wearing all these different hats. It becomes very overwhelming. And they realize while talent and hard work wins games, okay, now I really do have to start putting systems in place, right? I really do need to have an onboarding process, independent contract agreements, non-certificates, non-competes, NDAs. I need to be concerned about protecting my IP, my intellectual property, right? I need to start putting these systems in place. I need to start thinking critically about how I onboard people, right? Oftentimes I'll hear business owners talk about they have a hard time finding talent. And what I would challenge, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but what I would also say is, look, if you onboard somebody, you don't give them a track to run on. So they don't know what the expectations are. They don't know what skills or talents are required to be successful. You don't give them a blueprint to follow because you haven't documented your process. And then if you lack capacity to inspire people to do things, is it that you are having a hard time finding people, or you don't even know how to onboard a person when the right person shows up in the first place?
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So helping business owners kind of understand that process, which lays the foundation for them to grow from a team of me to a team of we.
Okay.
Right? And then putting systems in place so they're tracking accounts payables and their accounts receivables, making sure they understand their KPIs or key performance indicators, right? Or revenue generating activities, right? How many times are people learning about your business? How many times are you putting people in position to really make an educated decision about your products and services?
Right.
Whether they onboard or not, what do you have in place to continue to engage with them, keep your business present and on their minds? And then, of course, get out here and focus on creating the best product service that's out there, right? You got to be systemic about that. Oftentimes people spend all their time on marketing and branding, and that's okay, but eventually what ends up happening is you spend all your time there, you become a paper tiger.
Right.
And the moment, some competitor shows up in your marketplace, or the moment the next whatever pandemic is going to transpire, whether it be a recession or something going on in terms of, health, whatever the case may be, the next tornado, right, comes. If you don't have these systems in place, you get wiped away.
Right. What are some, how would you define or explain some of the specific services that you offer to potential clients? I have your website on the screen here.
I appreciate that. So, more or less specifically, number one, helping people actually put together a success itinerary, right? Or put together a blueprint to help them scale and grow. So once again, typically when I meet a business owner, I begin to focus immediately on, once again, core values, core focus, clearly defining who you want to serve, how you want to serve, and communicating your value prop in such a way where you become more competitive in comparison to other individuals around you, right? Then I move on to systems. Okay, so how are you onboarding clients? What does that process look like? How are you making sure that you're creating success stories, right? People who have a favorable opinion of their experience with, whether it be the product or service, and then making sure you put systems in place also in terms of how you onboard talent, right? And give them the best possible opportunity for success. I've heard it said that best like this: make sure you put the right butts in the right seats.
Okay.
Right. And then make sure that you have an outlook that will help you continue to scale and continue to build out systems and positions and hierarchies and frameworks that will accommodate the growth of your business, right? So that's kind of like the framework. Then, there are certain accountants that I work with that I refer people to, because someone who's in finance versus someone who understands business finance, those are two different people. Right? There's a big difference. There are people whom I refer to who are partners of mine who help people with capital acquisition. So whether it's acquiring loans, whether it's acquiring grants, whether it's being prepared to approach a bank, a micro lender, a private investor, or even a hard money lender, what are some of these things you need to have in place? And then if the person lacks the resources or even a wherewithal, I will typically recommend that they look at PPLSI. They look at one of those small business plans offered by PPLSI to kind of make sure they can be able to pick up the phone and they can access these resources at a price that fits the budget, right? So offering them basically big business resources on a small business budget.
Okay. And so these services are ideal for someone who's are just starting out, or someone who's been between a 2 to 5 year period. They're a solopreneur
So,
and looking to scale up to go from a team of me to a team of we.
so I'll give you a case point. I met with 5 business owners today.
Mm-hmm.
One owned 2 child care centers.
Mm-hmm.
One owned a small hospital, medical clinic.
Okay.
Another one is starting up a construction company here in Michigan, but also in Georgia. I met with another individual who is trying to figure out what they want to do. They're actually working as an insurance agent, but they're thinking about transitioning to becoming an investment advisor and eventually becoming a broker.
Okay, all right.
And this is the question I posed to them. I said, how much does it work to know that every single personal, financial, business, and legal decision you make moving forward will always be the right decision? And over the last 5 years, you could have picked up the phone, right? Whether it's questions as it relates to maximizing your tax deductions, whether it's questions as it relates to buying a car, buying a vehicle, buying equipment. Sometimes when you're signing documents, it's not what's in the documents, what's not in the document, right? How much does it work to know that if you are dealing with a legal conflict, because look, dogs don't bark at parked cars.
Right.
Eventually, a legal conflict. You've been in business longer than 2 minutes, it's going to happen, right?
Right.
You know, Walmart gets sued as a bad PR issue. If you're a small business owner, you get sued. Even if you win, you lose because oftentimes lost reputation, money, time, et cetera, right? You're going to need assistance in terms of HR, right? And make sure you have certain documents in place. Make sure you're complicit in bureaucracy, et cetera, depending on your business. And if you knew you could pick up the phone and have access to a firm or a network of professionals who are proven, to help you navigate these waters, how much would it be worth? And like, I've never had a business owner not come back and tell me he's not worth $2 to $3 a day.
Wow.
Right?
So you yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, whether you're just getting started, whether you're a business owner generating $250 to $500 to $1 million in your revenues, and you have 10, 20, 30 employees, or to be transparent with you, I mean, there are organizations that I personally work with that have 3,000 and 5,000 employees, and, you know, our company works within that sector as well.
Okay. All right. So you work with different entrepreneurs at different stages, different size of companies. So you have a wealth of knowledge. You provided some great information for our viewers today. Those who are, I call them most of my demographic for my podcast. I call them my 9 to 5 entrepreneurs who are. They may have a side hustle or a passion project or something that they do as a hobby, and they're looking to get that going, get that started. And you share some great information, some things to consider. I'm going to transition to how people can get in contact with you and work directly with you and take advantage of your services. Let me share this quick announcement, and we'll be right back. And we're going to talk about how people can work directly with you.
Hey everyone, this is Charles with Detroit Metro Plug Podcast. If you are finding value in today's video, I invite you to subscribe, like, and comment. We would love to hear your feedback. And don't forget to click on that notification bell so you can be notified when we have upcoming episodes of difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. If you're interested in being a part of our Facebook networking community, I invite you to click on the link to be a part of that community. This is a place where you can network with like-minded people and a chance to share about your product or service. If you're interested in working with me directly on how you can share your story with video or with podcasting, you can email me direct at DetroitMetroPlug313@gmail.com. Thanks again, and let's get back to this interview.
All right, so we're back. I want to thank those who've been watching this great conversation, the entrepreneur mindset with JuJuan Buford, wealth of knowledge and experience. He shared his personal entrepreneur journey from U of M, as an activist, and transitioning to investment banking and financial services to now where he is a business consultant, B2B consulting, as well as working with individuals who's just getting started, or if you have a business and you're looking to go to scale up, you're a solopreneur going from a team of me trying to go to a team of we, or if you're trying to scale up to scale your business to do some capital investment. So he has a wealth of experience. So JuJuan, you know, a lot of people are going to see this interview or watching live. They want to know, how can they work directly with you? How can they get in contact with you? I do have some information I can share now. The slide. What's the best way for people to reach out to you? And I don't know if you can do discovery calls or what's the whole process.
So the website it should be the Buford, so BUFORDCO.com. So that's probably the most effective way to reach out to me. If you go to that website, phone number, contact information, everything will be there, right? So it should be www dot and then the Buford BUFORDCO.com. That email address is a little bit dated. It should be actually JSBuford at thebufordco.com. So we make that simple, right? So JSBuford at thebufordco.com. You have my phone number there. That's great. How most people end up actually engaging me is they usually visit that Linktree, right, that you have there. So if you go to my Linktree, once again, you can schedule an appointment. There's a and it's JUJUAN Buford Official, right? If you go to the Linktree, but you can go there, and there is a questionnaire. When someone's looking to schedule an appointment, it just asks us some basic information like what's most important to you right now in terms of your priorities, at marketing, branding, goal setting, understanding your KPIs, understanding how to communicate a value prop. Like that questionnaire gives me the information I need to make sure the time that I have with a person is spent in a very efficient way, right? Where I can kind of focus in on the areas where I could possibly be of assistance. And once we have that conversation, we can kind of proceed from there. I'm not one of those individuals that if you jump on the phone with me, it's not my style to start trying to sell you on some type of product or some type of service. I want to know what's your goals. What are you taking aim at? What's most important to you? Where do you see your business 2 years, 3 years from now? What are the areas that you're struggling with? What's your vision for yourself? I want to hear those things first, right? I kind of almost see myself as an architect or even as a doctor, right? Before you prescribe anything, you want to know what a person looks to accomplish, what their deficits, weaknesses, or areas that they want to improve. So that's what that process typically looks like.
Okay. My apologies on the website, not having the correct information. Give that website
Okay.
again, the correct spelling.
So they can go to thebufordco.com,
Buford. Okay.
or actually to make it even simpler, right? You can go to my blog,
Okay.
which is Catch JS Buford, literally the word CATCH
Catch.
JS Buford. If you look up Catch JS Buford, that will actually pull up all of my social media presence. That'll pull up my website. That'll pull up my business endeavors. That'll pull up everything. Actually, if you just simply go to catchjsbuford.com, and the phone number, I've been told maybe you should or shouldn't, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. 248-560-7564. That's 248-560-7564.
And so you encourage, so you gave the website, your blog, catchjsbuford.com. But you do encourage people to fill out that questionnaire, and that's available through your Linktree?
You can find it on the Linktree. You can actually find it on the website and my blog.
Okay.
Right?
So the first step. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first step, when you want to schedule an appointment, if you click that schedule an appointment book anywhere where you find me, it's typically going to take you right to that questionnaire. And then once you fill out the questionnaire, there is a prompt where you can actually schedule the appointment. There's a link where you can actually get access to my online calendar, and you can schedule an appointment there.
Now, is this a discovery call, or what's involved? Is there a cost for the first appointment, or how does that normally
It's a
work?
discovery call. I mean, I don't presume, number one, that I'm everybody's cup of tea.
Right. Okay.
I don't presume that I am the answer to everything, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is just find out, like I said before, more importantly, what are you taking aim at?
Right.
What's most important to you? Like, what are your needs? What are your challenges? What are the areas where you need to level up in order to get to your next stage of your business, right? If I don't have the answers, or if I am not the answer, I will gladly introduce other people to a person to help them level up. I can't remember who was the author of the quote, but she basically says a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. So there are other people who are more effective, more efficient, more knowledgeable than I am in a particular area. I do not mind referring people.
Okay. All right. Well, man, I really appreciate your time and being on episode 73 of this podcast, sharing the entrepreneur mindset, basically being transparent, sharing your own journey. For final words, any, if you could say or recommend one or two books that may have had an impact on
Oh
your
wow.
journey that you can share with other entrepreneurs, and maybe a final thought as we close out?
Ooh, that's tough, man. So if I could think of the top books that have made the greatest impact, Endless Referrals by Bob Berg.
Okay. All right. He's a go-giver. That's my one of my favorite authors, Bob Berg.
Yep. Today Matters by John C. Maxwell.
Today Matters. Okay.
Um, Classic Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay. All right. That's 3. All right.
Patrick Bet David, Next 5 Moves.
Yep. All right.
Um,
I'm reading that book right now.
there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
There's a book, I can't remember the author. It's called Traction.
Mm-hmm.
And then a book that was very surprising to me, that was so important to me, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene.
All right. I'm gonna write that one down. Laws of Human Nature.
By Robert Greene. If I can think about the books that I can immediately recall that have made the biggest impact, were after reading those books, my modus operandi, my business changed, my revenues went up, I became more effective and efficient at the game.
Right. Right.
Those are the books I would point to right now over the last several years that have really made the biggest difference.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Wow. So thanks again. Man, you did an excellent job sharing the information. So for those who are viewing live and will see the replay on Facebook and YouTube, if you're looking to scale up your business, to go from a team of me to we, or integrate systems, you want to check out JuJuan Buford at JSB Business Solutions Group. Um, the information, the correct website and everything is going to be in our description, so you guys can connect with them. So thanks again, man.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for having me. I'm really, really appreciative and excited for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank
It's a big deal. I mean, I was paying attention once again to some of the organizations you're promoting, the activities you're involved in, and I really feel like one of the biggest errors in judgment that our generation, and quite frankly, even some of the previous generations, have made, is we got away from entrepreneurship, man. We
you.
got away from cooperative economics. We got away from collective work and responsibility. We've
Yes.
gotten away from that. And if we're going to change the circumstances that color our lives in our
Right.
community, um, it's got to start there. We got to get back to the basics, the fundamentals.
Yes. Yes, we do. And I hope that we can continue this conversation and do some collaborative work together to impact the community in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. So looking
I'm
forward to it.
about that life. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Yes. 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 All right. All right. So thanks again. We want to just give just a shout out to JuJuan Buford. We thank him for being on the Detroit Metro Plug podcast. So that wraps up our episode. I'll be here next week with another difference maker guest. Also, just letting you guys know, also started, I'm a book reader, so I don't want to apologize for that. I'm a little bit on the geeky side. So this book, Candy Girl Mentality, by Lisa Howes, she'll be a guest this month. I'll share more details about that. She's going to talk about her book and the work she's doing in the community. And so she has done quite a bit of work as a state legislator up in Lansing, as well as working with the Duggan administration, and very other aspects in the community she serves. So I'm excited about that upcoming interview. So I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for viewing, and please like and share if you find value in what we're doing.